I suppose this isn't necessarily surprising since the approval here has been taking a very long time, but what's your assessment?
Emily, look, the DOJ staff have previously voiced their opposition to this tie-up. Remember back in 2014 when Musa's son, whose company SoftBank controls Sprint, tried to buy T-Mobile at the time. DOJ at the time came out and voiced their opposition to this deal. So it's not a surprise that DOJ staff have again voiced some concerns about this deal. And the distinction to be made here is between the DOJ staff and DOJ leadership. So the staff have raised their concerns. We understand there was a meeting earlier this month where Sprint and T-Mobile representatives presented to the DOJ staff. And the staff had some questions about the deal. They wanted to know more about the cost cuts they've talked about. They wanted to know more about competition and what would happen to competition post this deal getting done. So the companies came away with that, understanding the concerns, but also realizing that they could probably do something else. I mean, they've always been open to partially restructuring this deal. There's been talk of asset sales, potential asset sales that they could sort of do to get the deal through the leadership at the DOJ. So it's not a big surprise. I guess it's a matter of time now. But I will say that the companies have said that they look to close this deal by the end of the first half, sort of June, July time this year, and they're still sticking to that timeline.
Right. We just spoke with Marcelo Claure, the former CEO of Sprint, last week, who was very optimistic. That said, the DOJ having some concerns about the deal is very different from saying it's unlikely to be approved. It sounds like you believe there's still a chance here, but it would involve some restructuring. Look, the companies want to do whatever it takes, within reason to get this deal done, because the cost of not getting this deal done, particularly for Sprint, is really, really high. This is an industry where scale really matters, and the companies here are getting together because they believe that achieving this kind of scale will allow them to compete better with the giants like AT&T and Verizon, who are miles ahead of these two companies, and particularly for Sprint, which is very much debt-laden. There's been a lot of conversations about what would happen to Sprint if this deal didn't go through. They would certainly, number one, would need to look for another partner because we don't think that Sprint could probably survive on its own in the current environment. And the companies together have talked about the fact that this deal, they think, could allow them to cut costs by about $43 billion. And a lot of that would come from not having to compete on price with each other. So the companies are very determined to try to get this deal done. And some of the things that have been mentioned, for example, the prepaid business is one that has been targeted as perhaps a divestiture candidate. And this is sort of the prepaid pay-as-you-go Wi-Fi and call business, which is a very big business for these companies. And it's run under the Boost brand and also Virgin Mobile brand, which you might be familiar with. And that's been one area where, industry experts have said perhaps that's a business they could hive off to try and get the deal done.